Hermetic texts, especially those related to the ancient Egyptian deity of wisdom, writing, and magic Thoth, have long intrigued scholars and spiritual seekers alike. Central to this study is Hermes Trismegistus, who is often considered to be an incarnation of Thoth, or a blend of Thoth and the god Hermes. In this video, we will uncover the deep themes of Thoth's prophecy, which include decay, immortality, and the final rebirth of all things implied in these texts. We will try to understand why Hermes Trismegistus is considered to be an incarnation of Thoth, or a blend of two gods. But let us first understand what the Hermetic texts are. If you're a beginner and have no idea what they are, or so-called Hermetica, these are texts attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. These texts are usually divided into two main categories: technical and religious-philosophical Hermetica. Technical texts include insights into astrology, medicine and pharmacology, alchemy and magic. The oldest manuscripts are written in Greek and may date from the 2nd or 3rd century BC. The most famous example is the Emerald Tablet. On the other hand, the religious and philosophical Hermetics are a relatively coherent set of religious and philosophical treatises that were mostly written in the 1st and 3rd centuries. The oldest text, the definitions of Hermes Trismegistus to Asclepius, may date from the 1st century CE. They focus mainly on the relationship between humans, the cosmos, and God. The early Greek Hermetic treatises in particular contain distinctly Egyptian elements. Their closeness to traditional Egyptian wisdom literature is obvious. This is why some have argued that the texts are simply copies of much earlier writings. Some even argue that this proves that Hermes is an incarnation of Thoth, or that ancient knowledge was passed down through worthy initiates. What does the prophecy of Thoth actually represent? In the Hermetic tradition, the account of the prophecy of Thoth reveals a rich set of teachings that emphasize the cyclical nature of existence and the continuous journey of the soul. When we speak of the prophecy of Thoth, we are actually referring to an excerpt from Hermes Trismegistus's definitions to Asclepius. Here, Hermes explains to his disciples that a time will come when the gods will withdraw from the earth. For the gods will withdraw from the land of heaven, and Egypt will be forsaken. The land that was once the seat of religion will be abandoned by the gods and made desolate by their presence. Not only will the foreigners who will pour into the region and cover this land disregard religion, but worse, religion, obligations to the gods, and worship will be outlawed with punishments provided for in so-called laws. All this holy land, this home of shrines and temples, will be filled with graves and dead men. Thoth's prophecy goes on to explain how the degradation of mankind will occur once humans no longer conform to the wondrous works of God's creation. Darkness will indeed be preferred to light, and death will be considered better than life. No one will have any regard for heaven, and the spiritual man will be considered mad and the materialist wise. The angry man will be considered strong, and the most evil man will be considered good. The whole doctrine of the soul which I have explained to you is that the soul is born immortal or expects to attain immortality. This doctrine will not only be ridiculed but regarded as an illusion. It would be considered a mortal crime, believe me, for a man to have paid homage to the divine mind. New rules will be created. There will be new laws. Nothing holy, nothing religious, nothing worthy of heaven or the gods that inhabit it will be heard or believed. Ah, how severe will be the withdrawal of the gods from men. Only the evil angels will remain. Mingling with mankind, they will force these wretches to engage in all the evils of violence, wars, robberies, frauds, and all those things which are contrary to the nature of souls. In those days the earth will not be stable, nor will the sea of Asclepius be navigable. Whether Hermes means the present age or the age to come, we leave to you to decide. Leave a comment if you have more information about this time frame Hermes is talking about. In our opinion, there has never been a time when this prophecy of Thoth has seemed more likely and fulfilled than today. But after all, we know nothing about tomorrow. Who actually is Hermes Trismegistus? He is a syncretic amalgam of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, embodying the convergence of wisdom traditions. The term Trismegistus translates as thrice great, and emphasizes his exalted status, signifying mastery in the fields of alchemy, astrology, and theurgy. This figure serves as a conduit through which Hermetic texts express profound metaphysical concepts, including the interconnectedness of all things and the pursuit of divine knowledge. In the Middle Ages and early Renaissance, Hermes Trismegistus was believed to have been a human lawgiver, a pagan analog of Moses. But why was Hermes Trismegistus thought to be the incarnation of Thoth? A series of early Egyptian books are attributed to Hermes. Some of them identify him with the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian Thoth. There are a number of scholars and theorists who hint that there are some divine attributes pertaining to Hermes Trismegistus. An emerald tablet is said to have been found in the tomb of Hermes Trismegistus. However, many argue that it was probably written by an Arab alchemist. In his Biographia Antiqua, Francis Barrett says of Hermes, "If God ever appeared in a man, he appeared in him. He means Hermes Trismegistus, as is evident both from his books and his Pimander, in which works he has communicated the sum of the abyss and divine knowledge to all posterity, thereby showing that he was not only an inspired theologian, but also a profound philosopher, receiving his wisdom from God and heavenly things, and not from man." This may explain why he possessed the emerald tablet. If divine knowledge was transmitted to the celestial realm through the incarnate Thoth, or through divine inspiration from Thoth, it would make sense that Hermes Trismegistus would have possessed this literature. His transcendent scholarship is why Hermes is identified with many of the early sages and prophets. For example, in his ancient mythology, Bryant writes, "I have mentioned that Cadmus is the same as Thoth of Egypt. This is evidently due to the fact that he is Hermes, and from the fact that he is credited with the invention of letters." Could Thoth have manifested himself through Hermes Trismegistus? Numerous researchers seem to agree that this was clearly the case, which would explain many of the mysteries and divine knowledge he possessed. Theorists believe that it was Hermes who was known to Jews and Christians as Enoch. He was adopted into the mythology of the Greeks and later became Mercury to the Latins. He was worshipped through the form of the planet Mercury because this body was the nearest to the sun. Hermes of all beings was the nearest to God and became known as the messenger of the gods. The Corpus Hermeticum contains the philosophical wisdom attributed in antiquity to the Egyptian god Thoth, whom St. Augustine says lived on earth at the same time as Moses. Some saints claim that Trismegistus was an analog of Moses. What Moses was to Israel, Trismegistus was to the pagan. Whoever he was, the influence of Hermes extended so far and wide that it is said to have influenced even early Christianity. The treatise on Asclepius was originally entitled Logos Teleos, the perfect speech. But why that title? The author said it had more divine power than any other he had uttered before. It seems to express his deepest thoughts about the oneness of the universe and the true divine nature of man. Hermes influenced early Christianity and inspired some of the greatest thinkers in the West, from Dionysius to Isaac Newton, who incidentally translated the Hermetic Emerald Tablet, to Ralph Waldo Emerson. One outstanding point about Hermes is that he is one of the few philosopher-priests of paganism on whom the early Christians did not vent their spite. Thoth or Hermes seems to have been a central figure in many cultures and religions. The French Jesuit figurative missionary to China, Joachim Bouvet, believed that Hermes Trismegistus, Zoroaster, and the Chinese cultural hero Fuxi were actually the biblical patriarch Enoch. They are all the same person. In his 1995 book, The Eternal Hermes, Antoine Favre points out that Hermes Trismegistus has a place even in Islamic tradition. Hagiographers and chroniclers of the first centuries of the Islamic Hijra readily identify Hermes Trismegistus with Idris, the Islamic prophet of Surahs 1957 and 2185, whom Muslims also identify with Enoch. It is said that while Hermes still walked the earth with men, he entrusted to his chosen successors the sacred book of Thoth. It was sealed in a golden box in the inner sanctum of his temple. There was only one key, which was in the possession of the Master of Mysteries, the highest initiate into the Hermetic arcana. Only he knew what was written in the secret book. Nothing specific is known about the contents of the Book of Thoth, except that its pages are covered with strange hieroglyphic figures and symbols that give those familiar with their use unlimited power over the deities of the air and the underworld. When certain areas of the brain are stimulated by the secret processes of the mysteries, a man's consciousness is expanded and he can contemplate the immortals and enter into the presence of the higher gods. The method by which this stimulation is achieved is described in the Book of Thoth. It was believed to be the key to immortality. It is supposed that the book still exists and continues to guide the disciples of this age into the presence of the immortals. The world can obtain no other information about it now, but the apostolic succession from the first Hierophant, initiated by Hermes himself, remains unbroken to this day, and those who are specially fitted to serve the immortals may find this invaluable document if they seek it earnestly and tirelessly. Some identify the Book of Thoth with the mysterious Tarot of the Bohemians. It is a strange emblematic book of 78 leaves which has been in the possession of the Gypsies since the time when they were driven from their ancient temple, Serapeum. Some sources believe that the Gypsies were originally Egyptian priests. Ultimately, Thoth's teachings encourage us to transcend the limitations of the material world, accept the interconnectedness of all beings, and embody the principles of wisdom and compassion. Thoth's prophecy clearly directs us to the path of awakening and union with the divine. Revival awaits us on all levels. When all this is done, O Asclepius, the Lord and Father, the God who is first in power and governor with God, who is one, will consider the conduct and self-will of men. By his will, which is the goodness of God, he will confront these evils and universal corruption. He will restrain error and every malign influence. He will either dissolve it all in a flood, consume it in fire, or destroy it by disease and pestilence spreading through the various lands. At last, he will restore the world to its ancient beauty, so that it may again seem worthy of reverence and wonder, and also so that God, the creator and restorer of so great a work, may be honored by the people then living with continual hymns of praise and blessing. Through these events, the world will be reborn. There will be a return of all that is good, sacred, and spiritual, and a restoration of nature itself, forced by the course of time through that will which is and was, without beginning and without end. Whether you believe that the Hermetic literature was handed down from Thoth and was later transmitted through another channel in the person of Hermes, or whether it was simply compiled by some scribes who copied other ancient texts from Egypt, the wisdom and insight remain astounding. It is interesting that what Thoth or Hermes said is very similar to Enoch's forbidden prophecies of our end. And are these not in fact, as we have already asked, all the same personality? Complete this ancient and mystical puzzle by watching the video you see on the left.